Yeah,
like extremely political.
Welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Addie Kasparian. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're about to have our finest hour. Maybe not our finest hour, but we do have incredible stories ready to go for you. We're going to start off with one of the dumbest debates that seeks to insult the intelligence of the American people. That'll be the very first thing we talk about in the show today. Stick around to figure out what that debate topic is. We have some major, massive updates on the war against Iran. Some of these updates seem like more of the same, but there are some efforts underway to essentially pressure Trump, get him to essentially bomb Iran again, even though it's not going to accomplish a damn thing. And wait till you hear the absolute chaos that ensued in Israel after one of their prominent news channels leaked some details about how Israel wants to retrieve Iran's enriched uranium. So that'll be in the first hour. We're also going to talk about Hunter Biden's sit-down interview with Candace Owens, where he attempts to do revisionist history when it comes to his own war criminal father. We'll be debunking that in the first hour as well. In the second hour, we'll probably get to this debate that Tucker Carlson had on Israeli television, in which he basically called the Israeli government and military terrorists right to this news anchor's face. It was a pretty incredible moment. So there's a lot to get to. Don't want to waste any more time with these teases. Just want to get right to it. As always, you can like and share the stream if you want to help support our show for free. You can also support us by becoming a member by going to tyt.com/join, or just hit that join button if you're watching us on YouTube. Members get exclusive perks and benefits, including members only content. And more importantly, you help to keep the show free from any nefarious influence, free from having to deal with corporate sponsors or backers. And I am so incredibly appreciative to those who support our show and help keep us as independent as we are in terms of our political thinking and our commentary. All right, with that in mind, why don't we get to that stupid debate that I was referring to earlier?
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrein in Tel Aviv.
That was the very beginning of Congressman Thomas Massie's concession speech last night. Now that he unfortunately has lost his primary race against an AIPAC-funded challenger who just recently called for the draft to be re-implemented so Americans can continue to be forced to fight Israel's wars. But what's really fascinating today, you wake up in the morning, everyone was kind of on the same page up until this morning when it came to the motivating factors behind this race, or more importantly, the motivating factors behind the challenge, the opposition to Congressman Thomas Massie. Up until this morning, everyone seemed to realize, everyone seemed to acknowledge that Israel wants him gone. The Israel lobby wants him gone. They're spending tens of millions of dollars to defeat him. They're backing Ed Galrein's campaign to the extent that this one little teeny primary race for a freaking House seat in Kentucky's 4th district became the most expensive primary race in US history. Where'd that money come from? Well, we've been talking about it for weeks and weeks. We know that he was, the opponent to Massie was an Israel-backed individual. We knew that Massie's unwillingness to fund Israel's wars drew ire from the Israel firsters within our country. But all of a sudden today, they want to gaslight us. They want to make it seem as though, no, it was just Trump and Trump alone. It was Trump and Trump alone who was able to oust Thomas Massie. I'm personally not buying it. So So as of this morning, with 99% of votes counted in this GOP primary for Kentucky's 4th district, Ed Galrine won with 54.9% of the vote. Massie, unfortunately, came in at 45.1%. Now, Trump had attempted to primary Massie in previous midterm election years. He did. It's just the truth. But he failed. So what happened this time around? What changed? According to Jake Tapper, nothing at all. No, Israel had nothing to do with this. I mean, it's hilarious because before the race was called, Jake was going on and on about what the media is going to do if Massie loses, how they're going to essentially switch the narrative, flip the narrative, and make it seem as though, no, precious innocent Israel had nothing to do with this. The Israel firsters had nothing to do with this. And that's exactly what Jake Tapper did. It's hilarious. So let's take a look at what he posted on X. Supporters of Israel have long opposed Massie, but he lost tonight because President Trump wanted him defeated, and Trump is incredibly popular in his district and in the GOP. Was it just Trump and the fact that Trump had directed his ire toward Massie that led to Massie's loss? It had, nothing to do with the tens of millions of dollars by the Israel lobby seeking to essentially oust this guy. Okay, so let's get to the actual numbers here. As Politico reported, a pair of pro-Israel super PACs linked to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee and the Republican Jewish Coalition spent more than $9 million targeting Massie, who has routinely rejected efforts to financially aid and symbolically support Israel. And by the way, one other thing that he did that really did draw the attention, and not positive attention, let's be clear about that, of the Israel firsters, of the Zionists in this country, was the fact that in one of his sit-down interviews with Tucker Carlson, it was either last year, maybe at the end of the year before, he disclosed what the reality is in Congress, that every single Republican congressperson that he is familiar with has an Israeli handler. So he was saying out loud how our government actually operates. And I don't think the Zionists like that. I don't think they like that at all. Anyway, another PAC, MAGA KY PAC, stood up by Trump's top political operatives, who also happen to be operatives for Israel, by the way, spent nearly $7 million berating Massie over his votes. So I'm sure that had nothing to do with why and how Massie lost his re-election bid, right? Just yesterday, we discussed how Tony Fabrizio, the co-founder of MAGA KY, very unfortunate name, works as an Israeli campaign advisor. That's right, he is an operative for Israeli campaigns. In fact, he helped Benjamin Netanyahu get reelected, much like Trump's current chief of staff, Susie Wiles, did. But I'm sure Israel has nothing to do with any of this, right? I'm sure Israel isn't occupying our federal government, right? I'm sure it's all in my imagination. I'm making it all up. Okay, so not only do you have Israel-aligned groups funding Ed Galrine's opposition campaign to Thomas Massie, Massie's primary challenger also was backed by the very super PAC that was co-founded by two individuals who work for Israel, helped Israeli politicians in their elections, and happen to be very much involved, intertwined in the Trump administration. So the most influential super PAC behind the Zionist attack on Thomas Massie is the MAGA KY super PAC, started by former Trump campaign manager Chris LaCivita and pollster Tony Fabrizio, which Politico noted is bankrolled by how much? $1 million from hedge fund manager Paul Singer and $750,000 from a super PAC linked to casino magnate Miriam Adelson. Another group, the Christians United for Israel Action Fund, what a disgrace, has spent 6 figures on billboards targeting Massie. But I'm sure that had nothing to do with Massie's loss. Nothing. Israel and the Israel firsters had nothing to do with, they have no influence on our government whatsoever. In fact, it is the most powerless group, not just in this country, but in the world. I mean, Zionists would never get away with murder, right? Except they do literally every single day. So When Netanyahu was running for re-election in 2020, I want to go back to this. He actually solicited help from Trump at the time. He's like, listen, I'm really struggling here. I'm a corrupt piece of crap. I'm facing serious corruption charges. I'm cratering in the polls. I need you to send some people over. Send your people to me so they can help me win re-election. And he delivered. He absolutely delivered. He sent Susie Wiles. He sent, Chris LaCivita, Tony Fabricio, the co-founder, of course, of the MAGA KY super PAC that helped to defeat Massie. But Israel has nothing to do with any of this, right? Nothing at all. Corey Lewandowski was part of that team in attempting to help Netanyahu get reelected. And to be sure, he did get reelected. This is in 2020. Unfortunately, that war criminal is sucking up our resources and goading us into wars that are absolutely devastating for the global economy and for our troops. And so Trump essentially made his bed by helping that disgusting man get reelected. So here we are today. But again, Israel has nothing to do with our government, totally separate. We're totally sovereign, and they don't get involved in meddling in our elections. Do you guys see how insulting it is when these people rub it in our faces that they have control over our media, that they are outspending incumbent candidates in terms of attack ads in order to oust these candidates because they're not towing the line on Israel? We're supposed to believe that it was just Trump's popularity that got Massie reelected. Now, here's the unfortunate thing, and this is real talk. Young people are less likely to go to the polls, and I think that's stupid. Okay, so if you look at the makeup of the Republican Party or the Republican base right now, older Republicans, certainly those 50 or older, have been so heavily brainwashed into thinking that Israel is actually a special ally that they just go ahead and roll with the punches, give Israel what they want, support whatever Israel wants, because that's the right thing to do. Like, they're gone. There's no saving them. They're gone. But the younger Republicans who would like to decouple from Israel, who actually understood what was going on with Massie's race, they don't show up to vote. And honestly, the Twitter posts are great if you're just trying to get the word out about something. They're not great in terms of accumulating political power. It's not great in terms of getting your favorite candidates elected or reelected. You have to vote. And let me be clear about something. I don't think turning your brain off and then a few weeks before an election, you suddenly decide like, oh, I want to be politically active, so I'm simply going to vote and that's all that I need to do. I don't think that works necessarily all of the time, but it is important to do the bare minimum. And the bare minimum is to go and vote for the candidate you prefer. And it's unfortunate that it's harder to get younger people to show up to the polls to cast their ballots. In this case, it could have helped Massie tremendously. So let's get to some more details here because when you go back to Massie's primary race, according to data by Ad Impact, overall ad spending in this race topped $33 million. This is a primary race for a House seat. This isn't a primary race for a Senate seat. This isn't a primary race for a presidential candidate. No. This is for a House seat in Kentucky. And despite all the money pouring in from Zionist groups, despite the fact that the whole reason why Massie became a target in the first place was because he had the audacity to demand the release of the Epstein files, which was incredibly embarrassing for the Israelis since they had very nice, cozy relationship with Epstein. He was making all sorts of deals for them, selling their cyber weapons. I mean, he was selling Israeli cyber weapons in Mongolia. That's how involved Epstein was with the Israeli government. And yes, there's a lot of suspicion that he was engaged in a blackmail operation carried out by the Israelis in order to gather dirt on powerful people in this country, possibly other countries. So you can blackmail politicians and ensure you get what you want because they don't want to be embarrassed if there's a sex tape of them out there, especially one where they might be doing something illegal, right? That's what Israel is. That's what Israel is. Now, Massie clearly didn't have anything nefarious in his background because had he had something nefarious in his background, it would have come out. So instead, the Zionists did what they do the best. They called on their billionaire buddies, heavily funded the opposition to Massie, and they got what they wanted. But not according to Ben Shapiro. No. Israel's never involved in anything, never. I mean, who even knows anything about Israel, right? They're so quiet, we never hear a peep. Let's watch.
Not a surprise that Massie's friends are all of the most conspiratorial anti-Israel people on planet Earth. That would include Cenk Uygur, who put out a tweet: if Representative Thomas Massie loses tomorrow, the Republicans will become Israel's party. It's about Israel. By the way, it's not about Israel. The reason why Massie is in hot water here has nothing to do with his stance with regard to Israel. It has everything to do with his stance with regard to conspiratorial nonsense about Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that he has voted against a wide variety of President Trump's priorities in Congress. Massie is trying this dumb routine. Massie himself is out there saying that Israel is trying to buy his seat in Congress. Again, my dude. Like this tactic is one of the dumbest tactics. I just have to say, it's such an it's a tactic made for stupid people. And the reality is that people who are pro-Israel do not like Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie has engaged in every conspiracy theory it is possible to engage in and has made common cause with the most anti-Israel people. That's true. But the reason that Thomas Massie is actually in trouble is because the Trump administration has decided to oppose him on the basis of completely other issues.
Again, that was Ben Shapiro, since he's pretending like he doesn't know how to pronounce Cenk Uygur's name, even though he's known him for the better part of a decade, maybe even longer than that. So Cenk Uygur, what was that? Shapiro, totally, a total joke, by the way. Okay, hey Ben, since you want to pretend like Israel had nothing to do with this, okay, fine. I'll do your drug. I'll play stupid for you. Why did Trump turn his back on Thomas Massie? What directed Trump's ire toward Thomas Massie? Did it come out of nowhere? Now, look, I know that the pro-Israel types like Ben Shapiro have been spinning this stupid lie about how it's really because Thomas Massie refused to fund DHS. Totally insulting our intelligence. Thomas Massie has been consistent in his political views. And by the way, many of those political views I don't agree with. But you know what I liked about him? That he was actually a principled politician who was consistent, who had values that he lived by, something that's very rare in Washington. Let's be very clear about that. But Trump did turn on Thomas Massie, not because he voted against DHS funding. By the way, that was a massive bill that included funding to CISA. CISA, what is that? Well, that's a policy that unfortunately is written in such a vague way that it allows for the government to engage in censorship of the American people. There was funding allocated for that in the same bill that included funding for DHS. Well, Thomas Massie has a problem with CISA. He has consistently said he does not want to fund CISA. In fact, Thomas Massie might be the one and only genuine fiscal hawk in Congress right now, which is why he consistently votes against frivolous spending by our federal government. You know, considering the fact that we're $40 trillion in debt, turns out spending $8 trillion fighting Israel's wars in the Middle East was a really bad idea, wasn't it, Ben? So this laughable notion that Israel had nothing to do with it. Okay, let's take a look at why Trump turned his back on him then. I mean, it's just an indirect way of fessing up to the truth that it's because of Israel. So Trump turned on him due to his role in getting the Epstein files released, which again implicated Israel for its ties to that pervert. And I suspect that Jake Tapper read much of Dropsite's reporting on that, which is why he's been so salty toward Dropsite, but he likes to play stupid. Okay, great. Trump turned on Massie following his refusal to bow to Israel and fund their atrocities and slaughter campaigns in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza. And Massie was a vocal opponent to war in Iran, which is something that Israel wanted. And by extension, Trump wanted, because Trump is Israel's bitch. Is anyone gonna deny that? So even if you say, no, it was because of Trump. Okay, but then why did Trump turn on Massie? And don't give me some BS about he didn't support DHS funding, because that's a lie. That's just a lie. And why is it that Trump failed in primarying Massie in previous elections when he attempted to do so? Weird, right? Seems like something was different this time around. Okay, so in other words, if you're to believe that Massie lost because of Trump and not Israel, the whole reason Trump turned on Massie and supported a primary challenger to Massie is because Massie upset the Israelis. And Trump's only purpose, I think it's pretty clear to the American people at this point, is to carry out the best wishes of the Israelis, not the American people. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. They just spent months bragging about the influence they have and the money that they're spending on defeating Massie. And then the day after the election, they have the audacity to pretend like Israel doesn't have control over our elections, our federal government, our foreign policy. Please, please. Here's the headline from Haaretz, which I thought was pretty fascinating. The most consequential Republican primary for Israel is happening in Kentucky. Weird, isn't that weird? Haaretz is an Israeli paper. Why is this primary race for a single House seat out of Kentucky so important to the Israelis? There's more. AIPAC rubs it in our face. They rub their influence, their meddling in our elections in our faces. So they say Ed Galrein's victory in Kentucky and Clay Fuller's win in Georgia ensures two outspoken pro-Israel voices are positioned to fill seats previously held by outspoken detractors, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Our community was proud to help pro-Israel candidates win these races, F Israel and F AIPAC. This country, this foreign country is raping us. And I literally can't believe that there are still a sizable, there's still a sizable portion of older Americans who are like, yeah. I want to be Israel's pay pig. Yeah, I want to send my sons and daughters or my grandchildren to fight Israel's wars and potentially die on behalf of that foreign country who couldn't care less about us. Okay. Now, I debated that Shabbos Kestenbaum guy on Al Arabiya today. I think it's going to come out tomorrow. And he tried to gaslight us about the reality of what led to Massie losing this race. And I really wanted to show you who Shabbos is. Because while on one hand, when he's engaged in a debate with someone like me, he's speaking to a specific type of audience, right? So he wants to downplay Israel's influence. But when he's speaking to a room full of Jewish students, he says something entirely different. Take a look.
What a pathetic philosophy of life. Because if you think AIPAC controls government, this is a free country. Build your own lobbying group and lobby for your causes. You think Jews control Hollywood? Okay, create your own content. You think that Israel is a foreign policy blunder? Okay, well then go to DC and advocate for your beliefs. It's just such a victimhood mentality that is so dumb and really makes you a loser. And I think that's the argument that we should probably go for. I think it's probably more effective to just say, all right, Nick Fuentes, you're right, we control the media. So what are you gonna do about it? You're just gonna bitch on Twitter? Like, okay. Meanwhile, we're gonna control more of the media.
When I issued a direct quote from that video to Kestenbaum during the debate today, he said he wasn't being serious. He was obviously joking. Did that sound like joking to you? Sounds like when Shabbos is in a room full of Jewish students, he's very proud of the fact that the Zionists control our media. And they do, by the way, control our media. I mean, I know it would be so easy for the people who care about freedom and democracy to find their own group of billionaires to influence our media or to throw races in a direction that we prefer. But it turns out those billionaires don't exist. There's a lot of Zionist billionaires though. And they like to buy up our media, as the Ellisons would prove. One more video for you. Let's go to that slob Podhoretz. This is John Podhoretz celebrating the role that, in his words, Jewish money played in defeating Massie.
I think it is a good thing if Massie and the people like him and others believe that if you cross the line into anti-Semitism, Jews are going to use the power that we have openly to go for you. Because what other recourse is there? Are we just going to sit here and take it, beg for scraps, hope that nice people are nice to us? The Democratic Party is going explicitly anti-Semitic. We can see it happening. There is an enormous amount of Jewish money in politics, by which I mean Jewish donors, wildly disproportionate, not only charitably, but politically.
At no point did Podhoretz provide any evidence of Thomas Massie ever saying or doing anything anti-Semitic. But he doesn't need to. This is what Zionists are. This is what Zionists do. They just label anyone they don't like as anti-Semites, and they don't think they have to prove a damn thing. The entirety of the Democratic Party is apparently anti-Semitic, according to Podhoretz. And I love how lazy they are. I love the fact that their brains have atrophied when it comes to debating substantive criticism toward Israel and the undue influence they have, the outsized influence they have over our government. So atrophied that they literally cannot engage the substance. They just, oh, she's anti-Semite, anti-Semite, anti-Semite. These are the brightest minds, right? Brightest minds among Zionists. Okay, explain to me how the entirety of the Democratic Party is anti-Semitic, and give me some examples, please, of Thomas Massie saying or doing anything that's anti-Semitic. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. But the reason why I wanted to show you that clip is because there you have John Podhoretz saying, yeah. The Zionists do have outsized influence, and we should brag about it. In fact, we should warn that we're gonna do this more and more. Okay, noted. I at least appreciate his candor there. Way better than the gaslighters like Jake Tapper, Ben Shapiro, and Shabbos Kestenbaum. Anyway, we gotta take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give you some updates on Iran. Welcome to Jay Klein, who purchased a monthly membership. Welcome to our new member. I hope you enjoyed the bonus episode today. Let's get to Black Mamba 97, who says, good afternoon, TYT. I get to watch live from home today. Bong is loaded. Salt Queen is freshly salted and looking lovely. Let's do this thing. I'm so jealous. I know that it's never gonna happen, because how could it? But I want to do like TYT meetups with like our members and stuff, and maybe, maybe have a little bake session, if you know what I mean. Let's go to Cecilia Deb, who says, Hawaii State just passed SB 2471, which takes corporate money out of state elections. First state to successfully fight back against Citizens United. It's a start. Thank you for sharing that with me. I hadn't heard the news. You're the first to inform me of it, and you need to take the wins where you can get it. Otherwise, we're just gonna be drowning in despair all the time. And there's a lot to despair over, unfortunately. Zen Sons in our Twitch section says, genuine question about how does TYT's theory of working with right-wingers work if Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene aren't in Congress anymore? Well, honestly, I think one of the most powerful ways of working together, and I think you see me and Cenk do this all the time, and it's actually yielded some really good benefits. These people, even if they're not politicians anymore, they still have huge followings. And so you can spread your message.
I am scary, I am threatening. I'm Darth Vader.
And that was Vine Shapiro. Special thanks to DJ Bart Kyle for that Shapiro drop. I loved it. During our social break, I was answering a question from one of our viewers in our Twitch community about, okay, well, if you say that you should work with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Thomas Massie on ending Israel's influence on our government, how do you do that now that they're no longer serving in government? To be fair, Massie still has, I think, 7 months left before his term is up. But I get the question. Basically, communicating and getting people together, like communicating your message to an audience or a group of people that you typically don't have access to is very, very helpful. In fact, I mean, look, who's gonna argue that people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly haven't moved the dial at all when it comes to Israel. They have, especially Tucker Carlson. Now, with Megyn Kelly, Glenn Greenwald had a huge, in my opinion, had a huge positive impact on her because he's a regular on her show. They talk about foreign policy oftentimes. She trusts Glenn Greenwald because, he's an honest actor and knows his stuff. And so I just think that you have to really focus on changing hearts and minds on this issue. And the hardest part about doing that, guys, is to not come across as an unbearable person who thinks they're right all the time. And I know what's right, and I'm not gonna take any disagreement. You just kind of plant seeds. And if people wanna take it, they'll take it. And honestly, when people feel like they're not being judged as you're sharing your point of view, they're more likely to hear you out, hear what you're saying. So I wanna find ways to build coalitions that are issues based. Because honestly, everything that's seen through a hyper-partisan lens, I think is meant to prevent anything from ever being accomplished. If you look at public opinion polling on a lot of the issues that we care about, believe it or not, there's a lot of agreement with the right and the left on policy. And I'm just talking about the voters here. And so it's a lot harder. It sounds a lot harder than it really is, but opening up communication, opening up dialogue, and being even just willing to work with people who agree with you on issues, I think can make a lot of difference. So we'll see. But I also want to just say, guys, and I really do mean this from the bottom of my heart, no one should do anything that they genuinely feel uncomfortable with, right? So if you just can't see yourself working with someone who's on the right because they have views that you just find so unbearable, you can't handle it, you don't want to deal with them. Okay, no one's gonna force you. But the only ask that I have is, and this has helped me out in my life a lot over the last few years, don't automatically assume that people have bad intentions when they want to try something different, right? So if someone does want to see if you can build coalitional support that includes some members of the right in order to do away with Israel's influence on our government, don't assume that they're doing it because they're actually secret right wingers or it's part of a grift. I think people like us care about this issue deeply. It does keep me up at night, not just Israel's influence, but seeing all of those people suffering in the Middle East. And I want to do whatever it takes to make it stop, including thinking outside the box. Anyway, that was my long spiel on that. Let's get to our next story.
Everyone tells me it's unpopular, but I think it's very popular. When they hear that it's having to do with nuclear weapons, weapons that could take out Los Angeles, could take out major cities very quick. When they hear that, when they're explaining, I'll tell you what, when we explain it to people, I don't really have enough time to explain to people. I'm too busy getting it done. When they understand, I think it's frankly very popular.
Right. Trump just doesn't have time to explain a damn thing to the American people or sell this Iran war to us. He's just too busy getting it done. Getting what done? Destroying the global economy by ensuring the Strait of Hormuz would be closed? Doing away with 20% of the globe's oil and gas because it can no longer transit freely through the Strait of Hormuz? Is that what you're getting done? Is that what you're getting done? Honestly, talk about cope. There you have the president of the United States, Donald Trump, downplaying just how unpopular the war against Iran happens to be, with the latest New York Times Siena College poll showing that 64% of Americans totally against the war, they feel that Trump made a major mistake. And in fact, there are a ton of updates on the war against Iran, including some clarity, some reality, some credible information about the real reason why Trump called off the strikes against Iran this week. Also, Netanyahu begging Trump to reignite kinetic war against Iran. And finally, turns out Israeli TV accidentally leaked a secret plan to seize Iran's uranium. So why don't we start off with setting the record straight on the real reason why Trump decided against striking Iran. Now, initially, Trump had claimed that he made the decision after UAE and Qatar leaders asked him to hold off. He said 3 Gulf leaders requested more time to work out a nuclear deal. Fascinating. This is his direct quote, as reported by the New York Times. So I was called by these 3 countries, plus others, And they're dealing directly with our people. And right now, Iran, and there seems to be a very good chance that they can work something out. If we can do that without bombing the hell out of them, I'd be very happy. Iran has made no movement on what they are willing to do in order to end the war and settle on a peace agreement. They're still very far from one another. You want to know why? Because Iran really has no reason to concede a damn thing. They have won the war so far. They have their own version of a nuclear weapon. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. And they are certainly using that to their advantage. It is impossible to militarily take hold or take control away from Iran when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. We don't have the weaponry for it. We don't have the manpower for it. So right now, Donald Trump is dealing with a devastating quagmire that has already had a negative impact on the global economy. And things are about to get worse because there's really no end in sight. By the way, so that's what Trump claimed about why he didn't strike Iran this week. However, after he made that statement, both the UAE and Qatar came out and said, we don't know what he's talking about. We did not say that at all. And then we get this fascinating reporting from the New York Times, which indicates that Trump was advised against the strikes due to Iran regrouping during the ceasefire and getting even more savvier in terms of our military movements. Now, the piece that I'm talking about is incredible because the most important part reported in this piece was literally in like the second to last paragraph. I'm not kidding. But don't worry, I read the New York Times so you don't have to. So let's get to the details of what they reported. US military officials say that the Iranian regime has demonstrated enormous resilience and the ability to inflict significant damage to the region and on the global economy. And so far, Iran's nuclear stockpile has not been touched. So there was a US military official who provided information to the Times as a source on the condition of anonymity, of course. And here's what we learned about why Trump was advised against striking Iran this week. And it wasn't by the UAE or Qatar. So Iran has used the month-long ceasefire with the United States to dig out scores of bombed ballistic missile sites, move mobile missile launchers, and despite significant losses, adjust its tactics for any resumption of strikes. And here's the kicker, guys, here's the kicker. Iranian commanders, possibly with Russian help, studied the flight patterns of American fighter jets and bombers, the US military official said. The official warned that the downing of the F-15E jet last month and the ground fire that struck an F-35 revealed that American flight tactics had become too predictable in ways that allowed Iran to defend against them more capably. So that's the real reason why Trump didn't strike Iran. Iran has been spanking our president and embarrassing him on the global stage since this war started. Now, I believe that the Israelis are far more embarrassing to our country and to our government. We wouldn't be in this mess to begin with if it weren't for our alliance with the war criminals that are currently governing that country. But it's just amazing to me that for the first time, I do feel incredibly vulnerable national security wise as an American. We've depleted our weaponry in helping Israel carry out its atrocities, in arming Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. We have bungled this war. We got dragged into it based on the special intelligence that Israel provided, which was totally inaccurate. Remember, the Israelis were in the Situation Room with President Trump on February 11th and convinced the moron, and yes, he's a moron, let's keep it real, convinced the moron that it would be easy to defeat a decentralized government to do regime change. For a government, by the way, that governs 92 million people in a country that has terrain far more challenging than Iraq's terrain. And obviously, Iran has a formidable military weaponry, an alliance with Russia and China. It's just the lack of intellectual curiosity demonstrated by the president of the United States is terrifying. Because when you don't really care about these details, when you're not curious about these details, it's way easier to be manipulated by war criminals, namely the Israelis, and that's what happened here. Now, apparently, what's next in this war, right? Like what happens now? We have this quagmire, but things can't stay the way they are. At the end of the day, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, so something needs to happen. Well, apparently, while Trump called off striking Iran this week, Benjamin Netanyahu has been in his ear in order to persuade the United States to go back to a bombing campaign against Iran. What that would accomplish, I don't know. Every military expert that I listen to, that I read from, people who actually know what's going on, they're not working for think tanks that profit off war. They're not defense contractors. They're just military experts who understand kinetic action and whether or not things can be won militarily. They really don't understand what a bombing campaign would accomplish. It wouldn't get the Strait of Hormuz open. It's not going to topple the regime. It's just going to kill more civilians, possibly more members of the IRGC, but obviously killing members of the IRGC hasn't really worked so far. So what are you going to accomplish by doing that? Nonetheless, this is exactly what Netanyahu wants. This is the only speed he operates in. So Amit Siegel, who is one of the, on-air people over at Channel 12 in Israel, says Trump and Netanyahu held a phone conversation last night that was described as lengthy and dramatic. Recently, it has become clear that Netanyahu believes less in the chances of reaching an agreement. Oh, wow, what a shocker. And wants a strike, while Trump wants to turn over every stone to reach an agreement. And that's probably because he understands that as much as he downplays the lack of popularity for this war, as much as he wants to downplay how devastating this really is for the economy, he knows the truth. He knows that it's bad. And he probably knows that he was manipulated, that he was fooled, was played for a fool in being persuaded to go to war with a country that not easy to beat, as we've learned. In the meantime, Trump continues to issue all sorts of unhinged threats against Iran. And honestly, there have been so many of these threats at this point that I just throw them away. I don't really care. I don't listen to anything he says. He's never telling the truth. But I figured I would show you his latest threat. Take a look.
Well, I'm saying 2 or 3 days, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something, maybe early next week, a limited period of time. Because we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would start with Israel. They would blow it up, and they would blow it up fast, but they'd blow it up. It would be nuclear holocaust. And there's no question in my mind that they'd use it. There's no question. And I deal with these people. They're extremely radicalized.
So there you have Trump saying, well, Iran better make a deal. I'm going to give them 2 to 3 days. If they don't do it, I'm going to destroy them. They'll be done. Okay, all right. We'll see. Just total disaster. Total crap show. Okay. But here we are. If you don't realize at this point that the Israelis are not actually allies and they've only used and exploited our country, I don't know if there's any hope for you. And I'm being serious about that. We should not be involved in this war. We don't benefit at all. Even if we accomplished everything that Trump set out in the very beginning of this war, it still really would make no difference in our lives. Oh, they toppled the regime in Iran. In fact, it might actually make things worse. You topple a regime, okay, what comes next? Oftentimes, especially in the Middle East, there's a power vacuum and then some, group we don't like takes over. Then you have a refugee crisis. Europe would be harmed by that far more than we would, but do I deny that you would have Iranians trying to seek asylum here in the United States? No, I don't deny that. It's a country of 92 million people. So it would have been far better if we never entered this war in the first place. There's one element of the story that I want to get back to when we come back from the break. I want to talk a little bit about what was leaked on Israeli television and the absolute chaos that ensued after the leak in the country of Israel. Don't miss it. 1245 says, Massie got that sauce. I don't know what that means, but I like it. So I'm gonna say he sure does. He sure does have that sauce. All right, let's go to Michael Cotavelli, 8013, who says, MAGA, Miriam Adelson governs America. I mean, bitch can't even govern her hair. How's she gonna govern this country? Anyway, let's go to Pakistani American Hawk Sentinel, who says, by the way, Pakistani American Hawk Sentinel, I both love you, but you got to shorten that handle, man. You got to shorten that handle. All right, here's the comment. Anna, it's not Israel that uranium promised to them 3,000 years ago, but Trump is desperate as well. I've seen that coming from miles away. Also, I made a new word, Islamomnesia, where mesia means hatred. I mean, I just, the last 2.5 years have been very enlightening for a lot of people, including myself. And I had some suspicions about where the hate campaigns against Muslims in America were coming from. But, the last 2.5 years really solidified it for me. Stinky Feet says, yeah, Anna, Israel, blah, blah, blah. What the American people really want to know is how the ballroom they will never visit is going. I'll tell you how it's going. Right now, Republicans in Congress are trying to find ways to cut $100 billion in funding to programs that benefit the American people in order to divert that money to Trump's ballroom/underground bunker. That's what's happening. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I'm going to read a super chat. Then I will give you some information about one of our awesome sponsors. But Top Tier Scrub asks a question that I want to kind of stay on for a minute and explain it in a nuanced way because it is nuanced. So, are we all ready to admit Jewish supremacy exists as a fifth column in this country? So here's what I am willing to admit. That the political ideology of Zionism is a Jewish supremacist ideology. It just is. So yes, at the heart of Zionism is the ideology of Jewish supremacy. It's just the truth. But the reason why I refer to Zionism is because anyone who's an honest actor knows that Zionism is not representative of all Jewish people, that it is a political ideology. And what I'm attacking is that political ideology and those who not only believe in that ideology, but force it upon the American people to our detriment. And when you say Jewish supremacy, I just fear that people are going to mistake that as you communicating that Jewish people overall believe in supremacy, but they don't. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be very precise and careful with my language because there are terrible people out there who want to carry out harm. And I don't want to in any way fuel that or provide any support to that, even accidentally. So that's why I'm very careful in what I say. But yeah, I agree that at the heart of Zionism, again, a political ideology, there is this thought of Jewish supremacy. So anyway, let me tell you about Noble Mobile. It's great. It's a great company. They want to tell you about how much your brain has rotted from being on technology, especially your phone. So if you don't know your brain rot index, you can learn by going to the Noble Mobile Life app today to track your brain rot and see just how much you're using your phone and how you can save money by using it less. Learn more by going to tyt.com/switch. That's tyt.com/switch. You could also download from the App Store or the Google Play Store. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about Iran and what's happening behind the scenes, because obviously the government isn't going to tell us about everything they're planning. The Israelis aren't going to be as forthcoming as we would like when it comes to war against Iran. So let me tell you about something we learned recently. Israel's Channel 14, which is widely seen as the top propaganda outlet for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has apparently drawn significant outrage after they revealed a possible plan to seize Iran's enriched uranium through a military operation and potentially boots on the ground. Because of course. So Channel 14 journalist Shimon Ricklin claimed on Monday that a commando raid could potentially be carried out near the Iranian city of Isfahan, where enriched uranium was allegedly being stored underground, but at depths shallow enough to make extraction possible. Yeah, that sounds like garbage Israeli intelligence meant to convince the US that we should go in and do something that's gonna get our troops killed. Yeah, I'm a little worried about that. So you have this host, right, Shimon Ricklin. Apparently someone leaked something to him about this plan, and he talks about it on his show. And that led to a lot of fury, a lot of rage, a lot of angry people in the Middle East, or in Israel specifically, because they feel that he's giving away too much information. This is super dangerous. Let's go to the next graphic. I want to show you, what's being said here. Former Israeli Army Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot condemned the report as reckless trafficking in national security. Reckless trafficking in national security, saying he suspected the information had come from a senior government official. Next graphic. So this, Eisenkot says, this is a report that must be fully investigated. Anyone who trades in this kind of information has abandoned responsibility and sound judgment and is unfit to lead. So essentially by talking about this, the argument by those who are enraged at the journalist who disclosed this, they're upset because they think this is tipping the Iranians off, which to be fair, it is, but it's also tipping the Americans off. And I'm not talking about government officials, I'm talking about ordinary Americans like us. What this communicates to me is that the Israelis are claiming that all of Iran's enriched uranium is located in one place, which is laughable. The Iranians are not stupid. There's no way in hell they have all their enriched uranium hidden in the same place. But not only are they claiming that, they're claiming that the enriched uranium is easy to get. It's actually not buried deep underground. It's actually pretty shallow, easy to access. Americans, go in, go ahead. It's gonna be fine, go ahead, go get the enriched uranium. So government officials in Israel are really upset because they think that this type of leak and that type of broadcast is going to make Americans further waver in their support for Israel, because we would be the ones who would be sending our men and women to Isfahan in order to do an incredibly risky boots on the ground operation to extract enriched uranium that the Israelis are pretending to be concerned about. These are supposed to be our allies. It is amazing. So right now, Israeli lawmakers are calling on the Knesset Defense Committee to hold an urgent meeting on the investigation into Ricklin. He says, look, I'm not saying anything that wasn't publicly available already. I'm not sure I buy that. But what I do know is that these Israelis are relentless, man. They are relentless. And the only way to stop the endless manipulation, the endless spending on their wars, the endless hostility that's directed toward the United States because we aid and abet their atrocities is to decouple from Israel. That is what we need to do. We should not be involved in a war against Iran. In fact, it would have been far better if we had built an alliance with Iran as opposed to Israel. Yeah, I said it, and I mean it. Israel does nothing for us. Iran, on the other hand, we're talking about a sophisticated population of people, a resource-rich country that we could be doing trade and business deals with. Instead, we've decided to shack up with one of the worst countries on the planet. And yeah, I mean that. Country that has a clandestine nuclear program while they cry about enriched uranium in other countries. A country that's in the process of stealing land in southern Lebanon as we speak. They've killed 3,000 people since March 2nd in Lebanon. A country that just leveled Gaza, committed a genocide. That's the country that we decided to shack up with. Ugh. I'm gonna stop there before I get myself into trouble. So let's move on. Let's move on to our next story.
DC is corrupt. Politics is corrupt.
But something's changed, Candace. It's not left or right. The DC elite of the left, they crushed my dad because he was never part of that club. He was never part of the Epstein class. You know one thing he didn't do? He didn't greenlight to turn Gaza into a Trump golf course, with the maitre d' being Jared Kushner.
Breaking news, Hunter Biden is smoking crack yet again. I'm just kidding. I don't know if he's smoking crack. I doubt it. But he's saying things that would lead one to believe he's under the influence of something, because the claim that his daddy wasn't some loathsome war criminal who aided and abetted Israel's genocide in Gaza is insane. It's a lie, and I won't let it stand. So when I come with the heat, it is not simply, oh, I am mad at the Republicans. When a Democratic administration aids and abets a genocide, they should be called out. And what Hunter Biden is doing here in this sit-down interview with Candace Owens, which, by the way, the full thing hasn't been published yet. That was just a teaser for the conversation, for the interview, which should be published on Thursday this week. When I see something like that, when I see this attempt at doing revisionism or laundering the reputation of a loathsome president who has been implicated in some of the worst crimes against humanity, no, that's not okay. And I'm dying to see what the whole conversation looks like. But right now, we've only got that teaser to go by. So I want to watch it one more time, and then I'm going to debunk what he's saying there. Let's take a look.
DC is corrupt. Politics is corrupt.
But something's changed, Candace. It's not left or right. The DC elite of the left, they crushed my dad because he was never part of that club. He was never part of the Epstein class. You know one thing he didn't do? He didn't greenlight to turn Gaza into a Trump golf course, with the maitre d' being Jared Kushner.
No, he just decided to greenlight a genocide. That's what Biden did, and it cost Democrats the election. In large part, it cost the Democrats the election. It cost Kamala Harris the election because she couldn't muster up a single statement to show that she would be different from Biden, that she wouldn't aid and abet a genocide. But anyway, so he told Candace, the DC elite of the left, they crushed my dad because he was never part of that club. He was never part of the Epstein class. You know, the one thing he didn't do, he didn't greenlight to turn Gaza into a Trump golf course. Okay, so Hunter is right that his father doesn't make an appearance in the Epstein files, at least the highly redacted, incomplete Epstein files that we, the American people, have access to today. He's right about that. Let's just, for the sake of this conversation, assume that Biden doesn't make any appearance in the Epstein files at all, that he's not in any way incriminated in those files. Okay, great. So Biden wasn't blackmailed, and what, he aided and abetted genocide for the love of the game? Is that something you want to be proud of? Is that something you want to be proud of? Okay. I mean, Biden, of course, loves his donors. We'll get back to them in just a second. But let's talk about specific things that the Biden administration did. So in December of 2023, the AP reported that Biden, or the Biden administration, once again bypasses Congress on an emergency weapons sale to Israel. Oh, fascinating. In the body of that piece, the AP writes the following: for the second time this month, the Biden administration is bypassing Congress to approve an emergency weapons sale to Israel. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who should be investigated because he's the top war criminal in our country right now, had told Congress that he had made a second emergency determination covering a $147.5 million sale for equipment to Israel, of course. Blinken made a similar decision earlier that month on December 9th to approve the sale to Israel of nearly 14,000 rounds of tank ammunition worth more than $106 million. I mean, they need that tank ammunition to kill all those kids, am I right? Ha ha! At least he's not trying to build a golf course. Jesus, man. Former Israeli ambassador Michael Herzog was even quoted, by the way. No, actually, let's pause on that for a second. Even the Israelis say it. Even the Israelis say the truth. They say it out loud. There were other examples of Biden bypassing Congress. In fact, if you're wondering how many times the Biden administration bypassed Congress in order to award Israelis with more weapons to commit atrocities, drop bombs on children's heads, if you're wondering how often that happened, this is a headline from Democracy Now!, March 7th, 2024. Biden administration quietly approves 100 plus arms sales to Israel while claiming concern for civilians in Gaza. Oh, were you concerned, Joe? Were you concerned? Okay. Well, the Biden administration has been publicly voicing reservations over the mounting death toll in Gaza. A Washington Post investigation revealed the administration has quietly approved and delivered more than 100 separate weapon sales. Not 100 weapons, guys. More than 100 separate weapon sales to Israel over the last 5 months, amounting to thousands of precision-guided munitions, small diameter bombs, bunker busters, and other lethal aids to slaughter women and children with. And Hunter Biden is sitting here and saying, the left establishment destroyed my father. No, your father destroyed himself. His brain was mush. He was not fit for office. He lied to the American people. His wife lied to the American people. His campaign, Ron Klain, all of those scumbags lied to the American people about his mental health. He destroyed himself. But you were worried about potential criminal charges if he was voted out of office, weren't you, Hunter? That's why you were part of that cover up about Biden's actual the state of his mental health. Let's go back to the Israelis. A sweeping Israeli Channel 13 investigation had exposed the Biden administration's complicity in Israel's 19-month war on Gaza. This is a piece from April of 2025. 9 top Biden officials acknowledged avoiding real pressure on Israel, even as the death toll surpassed 30,000 people. We're now at nearly 73,000 dead in Gaza, by the way. Israeli leaders openly bragged they dragged out the war, playing for time until Donald Trump's return. That's who the Israelis are, by the way. That's who they are. Former Israeli ambassador Michael Herzog was even quoted as saying this about Biden: God did the state of Israel a favor that Biden was the president during this period. We fought in Gaza for over a year, and the administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. It never did. And that's not to be taken for granted. Oh, the Israelis would never take that for granted. Any opportunity to carry out their slaughter campaigns, am I right? So if Hunter Biden is making the claim that his father is somehow better because he aided Israel's genocide but didn't seek to build resorts or, whatever Trump wants to build in that blood-soaked land. Okay, I guess. I mean, sure. I guess Biden's not looking to profit off of aiding and abetting genocide, but at the end of the day, he still aided and abetted genocide, paving the way for someone like Trump to come in and really accelerate the situation, right? So why did he do it? Why was there a lack of concern for the innocent civilians in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza at the time? I don't know, it might have something to do with the over $11 million he has taken from the Israel lobby throughout his political career. And that's according to AIPAC Tracker. Might have something to do with that. $11 million. Money talks. And these politicians are real cheap. So Hunter Biden can go ahead and suck it, okay? Your little effort at laundering your war criminal father ain't gonna work here. We'll be back in the second hour with more news. Don't miss it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier, and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
I'm wearing one of our pieces of merchandise. So the funny thing about the Dragon Squad, and that's what our viewers call themselves. That's the name of the group, but every individual chooses their own name. You might have Cincinnati Dragon. You might have Harry Potter Dragon. We have a Grandma Sunshine Dragon is one of those that I remember. These are people that like to have an element of themselves, their lives, what's significant to them reflected as a part of the community. But the concept of the Dragon Squad is just something I threw away as a joke. I was mocking the Proud Boys, these like right-wing groups that come up with a name for themselves that they think is cool, but it's actually really lame. And I thought, off the top of my head, I can come up with something that's still kind of lame, but much cooler. And so I threw out Dragon Squad, and I just moved on with my life. But everybody liked it, and so they kept it going, and so we've embraced it. And I think again, this was during the period of the pandemic. I think it was sort of nice to have a renewed sense of community, a feeling that you're a part of something when everything seems so chaotic. And as a result of that, we've got independent artists online streaming, making beautiful digital art of dragons. We've got, we've released a number of pieces of merchandise that people love sending us photos of them. And then, by the way, for me personally, people send me, like you can probably see in the background, like a knitted dragon someone sent me. There's a dragon book they sent me, dragon board games they send me. People have done like custom ironworks, making dragon bottle openers. Like the fans are super invested in diamond art and things like that. And so it's great that they send this stuff. Sometime we're gonna have to set up a wall of all of it. But yeah, it's definitely brought the community a lot closer together. The fact that we were no longer in this big studio, I felt a lot more personally attached to people. It felt very immediate. And I know that I personally needed the connection.
Conspiratorial anti-Israel people, Cenk Uyghur.
And that was Bain Shapiro. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. Mike Rotunda writes in with a pretty devastating point. I thought about grabbing this video for the show, but I can't stomach his insane statements anymore. Anyway, Trump was bragging about his approval in Israel, joking and saying, maybe I'll run for prime minister of Israel after this. Yeah, he claims that he has 99% approval in Israel. Yeah, because you are doing Israel's bidding. But you should care about your approval rating among the American people, which is incredibly low. This is the country that you are in charge of. But he's abandoned us entirely to do Israel's bidding. So No Math Dragon says that money came from us. We give Israel a bunch of money, then they kick back some to our politicians. Money for nothing and chicks for free. Dire Straits. I love Dire Straits. No Math Dragon. Thank you for the lyric and thank you for the comment. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about this amazing debate / interview on Israeli television. And someone means what they say when they're willing to go into the belly of the beast and make the points that they've been making on their own show. Here's an example of what I'm talking about.
So Israel is the most violent state in the world, even more than Iran? Are you serious?
No country, and I say this with sadness, but no country has boasted more about killing its political opponents than Israel, of course. It is never allowable, period, for any person to kill an innocent. You can't kill a child. The child did nothing wrong.
But it seems like when you speak about Israel as the most violent state in the world, you forget to mention that it is the most attacked state in the world from so many enemies, like any other country in the world. So if you don't put this equation together, it seems like we are doing it for fun or that we lost our morality. This is self-defense.
Well, Israel has definitely lost its morality. There's no question about that.
They sure have. And Tucker's right. There is no question about that if you're an honest actor who is tied to the truth. Now, Tucker Carlson entered the belly of the beast to spar with an Israeli host. His name is Yudi Siegel. He's on Israel's Channel 13. And the debate was fiery from the jump. I'm going to save the best clips for last. But why don't we actually start off with the host asking Tucker a question that I'm sure he already knew the answer to.
Do you generally believe Israel would try to harm you because of your opinion?
Do I believe Israel would try to harm me?
Yes.
I mean, of course, I don't know. I hope not. I don't want to be harmed.
Yeah.
But my main interest is not Israel.
I'm not just asking you. You were implied to that when you spoke about your coming to Israel. Let's see that for a second.
And I said to them, okay, I want to send you the flight information. And I want you to pass that on to the Israeli military just so, they don't mistake us for an Iranian drone or something. I mean, not to be paranoid, but again, this is probably the most violent country in the world, Israel.
So Israel is the most violent state in the world, even more than Iran? Are you serious?
No country, and I say this with sadness, but no country has boasted more about killing its political opponents than Israel, of course. So yes, Israel brags about assassinating people, and of course it does assassinate people.
I don't really know what more I can add to that. I think Tucker said it perfectly. I mean, I'll give you some other examples. If a foreign country, and I really want you to be honest with yourselves about this, if a foreign country, an enemy of ours, decides we don't like their scientists, we don't like America's nuclear scientists, so we're gonna assassinate America's nuclear scientists. Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with Israel coming in and just assassinating our scientists? They've been doing that in Iran for a very long time. Just going in. I remember having a debate with Jillian Michaels, and she brought that up like it was a good thing. Hey, Jillian, how would you feel if a foreign country decided that they don't like midriff-bearing fitness gurus with a fake vocal fry and come into our country and assassinate women like that? It would suck, right? I mean, certainly because you would be a target, but it would suck. It would suck that a civilian would be targeted for slaughter by a foreign country, but that's what Israel does. So I know how credulous this host is. I know how shocked he is that anyone would ever claim that Iran is less vicious, they're less barbaric than the Israelis are. But the truth is the truth, and we've all been forced to see it for the last 2.5, nearly 3 years. Let's go to the next video.
You can't kill people who did nothing wrong.
It's not just that, you know. I'm going back to October 7th. This was a massacre. That was attack on Israel about innocent, about women, raping women, kidnapping infants, taking them to the tunnels for long months inside Gaza. Do you imagine what the United States would have done to an enemy that would have attacked the United States and do the same in the same magnitude?
Well, I don't need to imagine, because we had 9/11 where many innocents were killed, and in response, the United States killed some of the perpetrators and also many innocents. And so we've done that. It is never allowable, period, for any person to kill an innocent. You can't kill a child. The child did nothing wrong. And civilized people understand that. That's what civilized people are.
But it seems like,
right.
But it seems like when you speak about Israel as the most violent state in the world, you forget to mention that it is the most attacked state in the world from so many enemies, you know, like any other country in the world. So if you don't put this equation together, it seems like we are doing it for fun or that we lost our morality. This is self-defense.
Well, Israel has definitely lost its morality. There's no question about that.
Like, imagine being a vicious barbarian and not realizing you're the vicious barbarian. Like, that's how that conversation, that whole exchange comes across to me. Okay, so let me just understand something. Nothing that the Israelis have done to the Palestinians for freaking decades. The Nakba, the mowing the lawn ever so often in Gaza, you know, where the Israelis just go in and just start slaughtering people to teach the Palestinians a lesson. All of that stuff, according to the Israelis, and by the way, according to me, according to Tucker Carlson, was not justification for the targeting of civilians on October 7th. That wasn't justification for it, right? Then the Israelis turn around and say, October 7th is justification for everything we're doing right now. No, the same standards need to apply fairly to everybody. So if that's the way the Israelis feel about their own behavior following October 7th, then if you rewind back to October 7th, based on their own logic, Hamas was free to do whatever they wanted. It would still be moral. They could have killed more people because of all of the atrocities committed against the Palestinian people prior to that day, right? Why wouldn't the atrocities of the Israelis against the Palestinian people prior to October 7th apply to Hamas and what they carried out on October 7th, similar to how the genocide that Israel is carrying out and provides cover for? They think that it's totally justified to do it because of what happened to them on a single day, October 7th. See, the thing that they're having a hard time understanding is that they're not special. You're not special. To the Israeli people, you are not special. Your life isn't more important than a Palestinian's life. Your war crimes are just as bad as war crimes perpetrated by other countries. You're not special. I don't care what you guys tell yourselves. I don't care what kind of magical thinking you engage in. Your life is not more valuable than other people's lives. I know it's hard to accept that, but that's what Tucker Carlson is referring to when he talks about universal principles. Civilian lives should be protected under any and all circumstances. But the Israelis don't believe that unless they're talking about themselves. When it comes to literally everyone else, slaughter away, who cares? We're the Israelis, we're special. Next video.
The reason that I have cause to comment on this and to say that it's wrong is that I'm paying for it. There's no reason the United States should be sending any money at all to Israel, and particularly not to its military.
Even if
Israel has neighbors that...
Even if the price will be the annihilation of Israel? This is not your problem.
I don't want... Let me be clear.
This is the morality that you're preaching for.
Well, let me tell you what I do think.
Okay.
Which is I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I don't want any Israeli to be harmed. I personally have always liked Israel. Not that that's relevant, but I have. So it's not, I don't want anyone to be hurt in Israel. I just don't understand why the United States has an obligation to pay for any of this, to send the weapons for it, to lend its moral authority to Israel, to lend its diplomatic cover to Israel, to lend its Air Force and its Navy and its military to Israel. I don't understand, where does this obligation come from? And no one will answer that question. And instead they say, well, you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah, look, I mean, the way that this host is behaving tells you everything you need to know about their sense of entitlement to our money. Our money. So it's not good enough to sit by and just stay quiet as they carry out their slaughter campaigns, their land theft, their border expansion project. That's not good enough. You also have to bankroll it, right? And then you have these charities, Cars for Kids in the United States. Never enough. It's never enough for the Israelis. It's never enough. They have to lie and cheat through these nonprofits to take money from Americans who think they're helping underprivileged children here in the United States. But it turns out the money actually goes to freaking adults who want to take a trip to Israel. Adult people who want to find a match, another Jewish person that they can match with and get married. That's what Cars for Kids is spending the money on. It's never enough. It's never enough. The lying, the cheating, the stealing, the slaughter, the border expansion. Their sense of entitlement takes an already disastrous situation for them PR-wise, and it just puts it on overdrive, steroids. No. You are not entitled to our money. You're not even entitled to our support. I don't support it. I'm actually a little more extreme than Tucker Carlson. I don't like Israel. I would like nothing to do with Israel. It's not good enough to stop bankrolling their atrocities. I do not want to be allies with them. I would prefer to have a hostile relationship with Israel. That's what I would like. And I don't know if he's doing it for strategic reasons or if he genuinely no, I like Israel. I don't know how you can. I don't know how anyone can. But I'm not gonna lie to anybody about how I feel toward Israel. Terrible country that has destroyed our country thanks to the wars that we've gotten dragged into in the Middle East, thanks to the trillions of dollars we spent fighting their wars, thanks to the hostility that's been directed toward our country because we help them with their dirty work. I'm not gonna pretend like I like Israel. Anyway, so while it's abundantly clear that Israel was the main motivator behind attacking Iran, going to war with a country of 92 million people, this host, Siegel, desperately wants us to believe otherwise. It's amazing. Take a look.
You accuse Netanyahu of dragging Trump into an unnecessary war with Iran. So let's think about what it actually means. Do you really think that a foreign leader can pull the president of the United States into a war he didn't want? And what does it tell us about Trump? Is he really that weak?
Well, I don't think that could happen. I saw it happen. I was there. And so that happened. I blame Donald Trump for folding under the pressure from Benjamin Netanyahu and his many allies in the United States. Donors to Donald Trump, people in the media class here, were effectively working on behalf of the Israeli government, and Donald Trump, whose decision it was, caved under that pressure. But on February 28th, the United States followed Israel into this war. And the Secretary of State of the United States said, we had no choice. They chose the time. The Israeli prime minister decided when this started. Well, that's the definition of control. He had control of this war.
It's over. It's over. The American people have seen too much. Democratic voters, for the most part, already knew. But now conservatives are waking up because it turns out we like living in a, sovereign country. A country where our people with our government and our representatives who have been elected by the American people make decisions that benefit us. That's what a sovereign country is, right? We haven't lived in a sovereign country for quite some time now. The fact that we are in a war against Iran is a very big example of that. But here's this guy who's like, oh, are you saying that Trump is so weak that he got tricked into a war? Yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, that's what happened. The guy who said over and over and over again that these Middle East wars are stupid, he's not gonna start any of these wars. He literally won his election by repeating over and over again that he's not going to start any of these dumb wars. But he did just that. Why? Why would he do that as the global economy is crippled by it? Why would he do that when the majority of Americans are against it? Why would he do that when we have nothing to gain from this war? He would do it because Israel wants it. So I would really appreciate if people like this stop trying to insult our intelligence and pretend like, again, what we have been seeing for the last nearly 3 years didn't actually happen, because it did happen. We all witnessed it, we all saw it, and I'm sick of the gaslighting. The final moment worth bringing up is when Tucker basically called Israelis terrorists, and I agree with it. Let's take a look.
This is exactly what Donald Trump said. He said that the United States would have been in danger. So you don't believe Donald Trump?
I don't believe Donald Trump, and I also think as an Israeli, you should pause before using the phrase terror regime, since you live in a country that just murdered thousands of children in Gaza. We should all pull back a little bit on the rhetoric like that. I'm not defending Iran, but I'm just saying
even the fact
terror
that you want
regime.
me
It's a little hard to hear that from an Israeli right now, I have to say.
Damn right, it's hard to hear that from an Israeli. I don't want to hear an Israeli talk about nuclear weapons of another country, considering the fact that they have a clandestine nuclear program. I don't want to hear anything about terrorism or terror regimes from the Israelis when they themselves are the biggest terrorists on the globe right now. And I do mean that. The Israelis do not have a moral high ground in anything right now, literally anything. So you want to talk about terror regimes? Look in the mirror, Israel. And it feels real good to see Tucker say it right to that guy's face on Channel 14. It's wonderful. More of that, please. Anyway, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears a little bit and get into this interview that Tim Dillon had with Piers Morgan. I personally am a huge fan of Tim Dillon, and I think he's one of the best political commentators we have in the country. Come right back. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Thank you to Cheesy Finger 79 for gifting 5 TYT memberships. I appreciate you. Thank you for the support. I also love your handle. Derek A-Rob says, Massie should run as an independent in his seat, split the conservative vote, and let the Democrat take it from the Republicans. I mean, that would be pretty heroic. I mean, just defeating Gallrein would be fantastic, okay? I don't think anyone who wants to re-implement the draft should be representing the American people, especially when we keep getting involved in wars on behalf of a foreign country. Silver Edge writes in and says, Anna makes Helen of Troy look like a strong 6. I think that's a good thing. I don't know, but thank you. We've got Anthony saying that Trump got tricked into this war, but he's also being blackmailed and or bribed. He's definitely being bribed. We know that for sure. Blackmailed, I certainly suspect that's part of it, but we don't have hard evidence. So it's just a suspicion. It's just me, speculating. But whatever they have on Trump, if they do have something on Trump, it must be a doozy because he cares about his legacy probably more than anything, including gold gilded ballrooms. The fact that he's destroying his own legacy for Israel just like makes no sense unless he's being blackmailed. Anyway, back to the show.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
And that was Vine Shapiro. Why don't we check in on the economy, shall we? Because I keep referencing or citing that the economy isn't doing so great, especially after we went to war with Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz happened. But we've got some pretty in-depth analysis that I want to get into because it kind of shows you how bad things have gotten already for small businesses. Let's talk about it. As the war against Iran continues to rake Americans across the coals, economically, of course, President Donald Trump decided to dispatch Vice President J.D. Vance to soften the blow with the American people. You know, just twist the narrative in any way he can to make them think that, no, things are totally going well. I am putting lipstick on a pig, and I think you're dumb enough to believe it. It didn't go well because Americans actually aren't dumb. They know what's going on. So here's the reality. Small businesses with fewer than 250 employees were actually responsible for half of all the new jobs that were created in the past 5 years. So small businesses are a really important, integral part of our economic system. And to be honest with you, small businesses are way better than major multinational corporations. The services are usually better, the products are usually better, and they make communities better. But unfortunately, now it turns out that these small businesses are suffering deeply from the rising energy and labor costs associated with the war against Iran. So not only are we spending, that we know of, tens of billions of dollars to fight Israel's war against Iran. Not only are we depleting our military weaponry, including missile interceptors, in an effort to do Israel's bidding, on top of that, we are destroying the global economy, including the national economy. And that's because oil and gas makes the world go round. As much as, those concerned with climate change hate to admit it, it's just the truth. And when you have lost access or supply and energy prices go up as a result of that, that has a trickle-down effect on the rest of the economy. So the in-depth analysis that I was referring to was carried out by the Bank of America Institute. And I love these types of reports because they tend to be a lot more accurate. These are the types of reports that help these types of financial institutions make decisions about their businesses. So they want to be as accurate as possible. So let's take a look at this first graph. Let's put this up on screen. So it shows that small business profitability growth actually declined by 1.3% year over year in April. That's the sharpest decline in 2 years. That's not a good sign, and you can see it's a pretty steep decline. Now, Axios notes, and by the way, according to the April National Federation of Independent Businesses, they put out a report. They say that consistent with the falling profitability growth and lower sales, small business optimism remained below the 52-year average. This reflects persistent concerns about labor availability, inflation, and uncertainty about the economic outlook. I don't really know what they're referring to when they talk about labor availability, especially as a ton of people have already gotten fired because of AI. So maybe they're referring to certain types of workers, who knows, in certain fields. But Axios notes that this change in our economic situation, which wasn't that great to begin with, let's be clear, that came after gas prices spiked due to the Iran war, which shut down the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global shipping lane for energy. Kind of shocking that Axios of all places published that. I thought Axios was just, serving as it pertains to the war against Iran or anything having to do with Israel. I thought they were just stenographers for the administration, but I guess not. So the Bank of America report further broke down the cost of gasoline. Let's take a look at this graph. So looking at aggregated small business credit and debit card spending by small businesses, they found that gasoline spending growth surged nearly 31% year over year in April. That is unsustainable, guys. That is unsustainable. So we've been at war with Iran for 2 months already. Small businesses are spending 31% more on gasoline. That's almost 8 times the total card spending growth per small business client. And surprisingly, despite the horrible economic news, more people are optimistic enough to attempt to start small businesses. However, the associated costs are making things much harder for them to do so. But Trump sent out VP Vance to attempt to soften the blow for Americans, to put that lipstick on that big pig, right? Did it work? I'm gonna let you watch the video. You can decide for yourselves.
And then finally, just to give an update on the Iran negotiation, the Iran situation. I just talked to the president very briefly before I came out here. It's actually a very simple proposition here. There are two options, two pathways we can go down when it comes to the Iran situation.
Oh, the Iran situation. Wow, it's a wild way to characterize a war that you started against a country of 92 million people. But never to be outdone, Vance went on to say the following.
The White House is negotiating with Iran in good faith. I think Americans tend to believe that. But what is it about the Iranian side that you personally have seen where you believe that they are negotiating with us in good faith?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a very complicated country, and it's a country that I wouldn't pretend that I understand even after as deep as I've been involved in this process from the very beginning. It's a great and proud civilization, amazing people. We obviously have a great Iranian American community here in the United States of America.
So we went to war with a country that you don't quite understand. Okay, all right. Well, things didn't get any better after he admitted that he didn't fully understand the country that his administration is currently trying to topple. But when asked about Americans and their perception about the on again, off again negotiations with the Iranians, Vance offered up, honestly, what you could probably hear from Kamala Harris if she was asked the same question. A lot of word salad. Someone get the ranch dressing. Let's take a look.
Just for Americans at home, because this has been going on for several weeks now. I think what people just want to know is, do you personally believe that the Iranians will come to a deal? Because we keep seeing this over and over again where they go back and forth.
So do I personally believe it? The honest answer is, how could I possibly know, right? And you negotiate with people, and sometimes you feel like you're making progress, and sometimes you feel like you're not making progress. What I think is that the Iranians want to make a deal. What I think is that the Iranians recognize that a nuclear weapon is the red line for the United States of America, that they've internalized that. But we're not going to know until we're actually putting pen to paper on signing a deal. We've had a lot of drafts, a lot of pieces of paper going back and forth, but I will not say with confidence that we're going to reach a deal until we're actually signing a negotiated settlement here. And I think that it's ultimately up to the Iranians whether they're willing to meet us, because I think we're certainly doing a good job and we're certainly negotiating in good faith.
Let us dispel the notion that a peace deal would simply need to be reached between the United States and Iran in order to end this war, as if Israel isn't a huge part of this equation. So let's just be honest. The reason why JD Vance provided a word salad answer to that good question, although let me just say, the idea that all Americans are under the assumption that the US is engaging in good faith or negotiating in good faith is laughable. So that part of her question made me chuckle a little bit. But putting that aside, it was a good question. And the reason why he couldn't really give a good answer is because he can't admit what the reality is. This war will not end until Israel wants it to end. Israel doesn't want it to end. In fact, Israel would like to escalate the situation and go back to bombing the hell out of the very Iranian people I'm pretending to love and I'm saying nice things about. So I do agree with Vance on one thing, although I'm a little bit different in my reasoning. It is up to the Iranians whether the war ends. Iran has the cards. They won the war. They control the Strait of Hormuz. They're never going to let that go. So if you'd want the kinetic action to end once and for all, give Israel a reason to not want to continue with the war. Yeah, I said it. They're running low on interceptors. The US doesn't have interceptors to give them. We're running low on interceptors. So if Netanyahu wants more kinetic action, I think Iran should give him more kinetic action until he cries uncle. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this quagmire for years to come. And I mean that. The ball is in Iran's court. But what's amazing to me is the insane amount of restraint they have shown in this entire conflict. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, enjoy your higher gas prices and your crippled economy, because that's what we're getting from a president who ran a campaign on doing something about affordability. What a joke. All right, let's take our final break, get that out of the way, and then we'll get to that Tim Dillon story I was referring to. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Let's go to our Twitch community where Avenger Dragon says Scott Perry's opponent had to rent a house in the district to run, and she ignored debates. I mean, much like Galrine refused to debate Thomas Massie even once. It is, anyway, here's the one thing I refuse to give into. The level of despair that makes you want to give up. That's what they want. I'm not gonna let that happen. Okay, we lost this one battle, but we're not gonna lose the war. Let's just put it that way. Let's go to more of our members. Lady AF says Massie needs to grab that Senate seat. I don't know what Massie is planning, but I really do hope he raises hell over the next 7 months. Mr. Anderson says he's not trying to end the war because he, his family, and cronies are profiting massively from it. I assume referring to Trump. And I mean, Kushner's the new Epstein, by the way, not necessarily in regard to like the perversions and stuff. No, I'm specifically talking about an operative, a US-based operative that's working on behalf of Israel and, making the deals behind the scenes, wheeling and dealing, dragging the US into wars. Kushner is a nefarious figure, okay? He just is, and I think it's pretty obvious. Simon Moody says, I now need a cold shower because I found not a single thing Tucker said to be off note. He stood up, he punched smartly and truthfully. Rage Rock for now writes in our members section and says, regarding Tim Dillon on Piers Morgan's show, I figured Anna would want to cover this. I love Tim Dillon. I think Tim Dillon is one of the best comedians in the country. Do with that information what you will, okay? You might disagree with me. I don't miss his Saturday show ever. I love it. So when he had a sit-down interview with Piers Morgan, obviously I'm gonna watch it. But more importantly, I think a lot of what he said was important. And so without further ado, let's get into the story. Do we have a cold open for this? If we don't, it's okay. Oh, we do.
I think Kamala Harris and Biden were a disaster. I believe that. But again, this turn to Iran, to interventionism, to me feels like the biggest betrayal of a political movement I've ever seen.
Well, that's because it is the biggest betrayal of a political movement we have ever seen. And that's saying a lot because the bar is real high. Now, it's safe to say comedian Tim Dillon doesn't have warm and fuzzy feelings toward the Trump administration at the moment. And the current state of the so-called MAGA movement, I think, is enough reason to not be very happy with the outcome of Trump getting elected for the second time. Now, despite the fact that Tim Dillon, even in the context of this interview, has said that he didn't even vote for a presidential candidate in the last election, he has characterized the war in Iran as the biggest betrayal of a political movement. And that's significant. Now, Dillon, who hosted JD Vance, now Vice President JD Vance, on his podcast days before the 2024 election, was thought to be one of the, podcasters who really helped the Trump campaign win. And I'm sure he doesn't love that these days, or love that he's thought of being one of those people. But other podcasters included like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz. I know Theo Vaughn had President Donald Trump as a candidate on his show. You get the picture. And according to CNN, from sit downs with Dillon and the comedian Theo Vaughn to appearances with the online pranksters known as the Nelk Boys, podcaster Joe Rogan and Twitch streamer Aiden Ross, Trump team placed calculated bets on an ecosystem of influencers who may not be conventionally political, but command attention and, more crucially, loyalty from the digital generation. However, the initial enthusiasm that some of these podcasters may have had toward Trump or JD Vance seems to have dissipated because Trump has turned his back on the very people who got him elected in the first place by betraying them, betraying what he said that he was going to do for them. He has made our economy far worse. Prices have gone up. Inflation isn't getting any better. We have engaged in more wars. Obviously, we started a war with Iran, and that has been a complete doozy in crashing, not crashing the economy yet, but the economy is not doing well. And the inflation we're experiencing is the result of a war that we should not be involved in. The Trump administration literally indicted 94-year-old Raul Castro of Cuba, and they're planning a regime change war against Cuba soon. I mean, it's just, total opposite of what Trump claimed he was going to do for the American people if he got elected. There's the Epstein files cover up, and Trump, of course, engages in his typical saber rattling while waging wars with nations that we have nothing to do with. We wouldn't benefit from going to war with these countries, but Israel wants it, so we're going to do it anyway. But few have been so vocal in their criticism of Trump as Dillon, who went on to say the following.
We've had the host of The Apprentice serve 2 terms as American president. Tucker Carlson, whether people love him or hate him or don't even care about him, he's incredibly televisual. He's incredibly eloquent, fast-talking, inspirational to many people. Is it unthinkable that someone like him could become the new face of the Republican Party?
Certainly not. I don't think it's unthinkable. I think it would really depend on if the country was going to give any Republican a shot after this. I think Trump's damaged the Republican brand in the near future for years to come.
I don't think JD Vance stands a chance. I think JD Vance is going to run into the same problem that Kamala Harris ran into. Biden was a deeply unpopular president. Trump is a deeply unpopular president. JD Vance wanted to present himself as an anti-interventionist. I mean, I feel that Vance was lying about his actual identity and what he actually believes for a long time now. He is a creation of Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel and his companies benefit greatly from wars, from surveilling the American people. JD Vance is not about freedom of speech, freedom from government surveillance. He is a creation of the very people who benefit from that. But he was going to try to lie and, pass himself off as what young conservative voters are looking for in a president. And he's just not that. So let's say we fast forward to 2028 and JD Vance is one of the GOP contenders in the primary for president. Is he going to distance himself aggressively from President Donald Trump? I doubt it. And even if he does, are people going to believe him? And by the way, Trump is already starting to endorse Marco Rubio over JD Vance, which can't wait for that fight. But anyway, Dillon also criticized big tech and finance for its role in policy continuity from one administration to another. It doesn't matter. That's what we get in this country. Take a look.
It seems to be with Trump going into Iran, no matter who you vote for, you do seem to get a lot of the same foreign and economic policy in my country. You do seem to get military intervention abroad, and then kind of the tech and the financial sector dominating the domestic political agenda, no matter who's in there. And that's why all these tech CEOs are clustered around him in China. These are the same people that were with Biden and Harris and censoring their websites to limit conservative speech when they were in. So they obviously view themselves as the actual government, and whoever the president is like a guy giving them a tour.
They might be half right.
I think they're more than half right.
Partisan politics has always been a trick when it comes to some pretty serious issues. So when it comes to economic issues, you'll have the Democrats and Republicans play good cop, bad cop. But at the end of the day, and I actually framed it this way when I was having a debate with one of my friends who's a lifelong Democrat, all of that. Here's what tends to happen. Republican administrations come in and they break things, they do what they do, right? So they'll roll back certain liberties Americans enjoy, or they'll roll back regulations so corporations can screw us even more. And then people are upset. So they think, oh, well, the Republicans did this, so we gotta elect the Democrats next. Democrats get elected, and then do they fix the things that were broken? Never. They never do because they don't actually care and they never wanted to. Perfect example, when Donald Trump ripped up the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, Joe Biden campaigned on re-implementing the Iran nuclear deal. Did he actually do it? No, he didn't do it, did he? He didn't do it, did he? When Trump provided cover for Mohammed bin Salman after he ordered the slaughter and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi, remember Biden said, if I get elected, there will be sanctions, there will be punishment for MBS for doing this. Did he do that? Of course he didn't. In fact, he became a butcher himself. Not a butcher of Washington Post journalists, a butcher of literal children in Gaza. So Tim Dillon is right. And the reason for this is because lobbyists buy politicians from both sides of the aisle. They don't care. They're not driven by heartfelt, principled ideology. They're driven by profit motives. In the case of foreign policy, you have countries like Israel that are driven by land expansion, border expansion. And they'll bribe anybody to get it, including Democrats, including Republicans. Republicans come in, they break. Democrats pretend like they're gonna fix it, but they never do. So the country just continues devolving further and further into the hellscape we're currently living in. But let's leave with some positive, optimistic commentary from Tim Dillon, because he does see a huge benefit to the internet and how it's playing a role in changing people's minds on certain issues. Let's take a look.
Social media has made the horrors of war a lot more accessible to people. I think one of the reasons that Israel has become so unpopular is because younger people are growing up seeing the realities of what's going on in Gaza on their phone every day.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that, when you look at the limits of hard power in this century, the Iran war might be the tipping point where you see this is the beginning of the end of America's ability to enforce a global order militarily.
Yeah. I think that's extremely likely.
And I think the next shoe to fall is our ability to do it economically.
I don't think we've been able to crush countries economically for a while now. I mean, just think about the economic sanctions we've implemented against Russia, against Iran. That didn't topple their regimes. That didn't really do much. Sure, it caused some pain and suffering for civilians, but we are unable to go around bullying other countries, making them bend to our will, both militarily and economically. Maybe we can learn a lesson from, China and flex that soft power by building relationships through trade, diplomacy, friendly relationships. Maybe we can build things for people instead of destroying things for people. That would be helpful, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we are hated internationally as Americans, as a country. And that's because of how our government represents us, both at home and on the global stage. So I think it's about time we get our heads out of this Republicans bad, but Democrats very good mentality, and see politicians for what they are. What is their track record? Who is funding them? What are their priorities? And some of them are gonna be Weasley and they're gonna skirt by lying to us. That's definitely true. But there needs to be coalitional power outside of government that's effective at applying pressure and making these damn politicians bend to our will. That's what we need. Anyway, I'll end on a story about rising dissent toward AI because it's definitely here and people are not buying it.
Spring signals graduation season and commencement speech time, but one phrase proving wildly unpopular.
The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution.
From a tech business executive to a music industry titan, AI clearly striking a sore spot.
AI is rewriting production as we sit here. Deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool.
At the University of Arizona, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt faced loud jeers on the topic.
The question is whether you will help shape artificial intelligence. We do not know.
Can I just say, like, can you imagine you're in the hole to the tune of like $150,000 to go to a 4-year institution, and this is how they reward you at your culmination by having some crusty ass Silicon Valley executives brag about how AI is going to make you irrelevant to the workforce. These people are so out of touch, it blows my mind. Okay, but right now the artificial intelligence industry is totally driving the stock market. And that might be a problem, might be overvalued. But for all of their successes, AI companies face one huge problem. Americans don't seem to like them very much. I would be one of them. And it's hard to blame Americans for feeling this way because after all, they're hearing comments like those made by Bill Winters, the CEO of a bank called Standard Chartered. So yesterday he explained that the bank is planning to cut almost 8,000 jobs from its support staff. Then he said this: it's not cost cutting, it's replacing in some cases lower value human capital with the financial capital and the investment capital we're putting in. Bill Winters is a garbage person. You're a garbage person. You want to maximize your profits by doing away with human labor, and that's what this is. That's all this is. Winters, by the way, had to apologize in a memo to bank employees. Imagine being an executive of a company and saying crap like this when you still have, human employees that you seem to think or happen to be a drag on your precious profit. When is enough enough? When is enough enough? I just want to be able to pay my bills and maybe buy myself a nice dress on Poshmark here and there. These people, it's never enough for them. It's never enough. They could go vacation in Sorrento every single day for the rest of their lives, but they have enough money for that already. But in their minds, it's still not enough. Anyway, ironically, prior to those comments, Winters was attempting to reassure his employees that adopting AI would totally be a net positive. It wouldn't harm them in any way, shape, or form. Some roles will reduce, others will grow, and new ones will emerge, Winters said in an earlier memo to staff. He said the bank would try to redeploy and retain workers and handle job losses with respect and care. No one believes him, nor should they. Now, obviously mixed messaging, and it's mixed because he's trying to cover for the terrible things he said earlier. At the end of the day, he's looking to rid his company of human workers so he can, save on costs, maximize profits. That's how companies work. Americans are pretty clear on how they feel about AI. Let's dive into the latest Quinnipiac University poll that was conducted. Actually, this was conducted in March. It showed that 55% of Americans think AI will do more harm than good in their day-to-day lives, while 34% think AI will do more good than harm, with 11% not offering an opinion. 74% of Americans think the government is not doing enough to regulate the use of AI, while 13% think the government is doing enough. Another 13% not offering an opinion. And 70% of Americans think advancements in AI are likely to lead to a decrease in the number of job opportunities for people. Just 7% think they are likely to lead to an increase. Those people are high on something, and I want some of it. 18% think advancements in AI will not make much of a difference. Those people are also delusional. So look, I've been reading stories about how much more advanced AI has gotten to a point where, you set them up to compete with each other and they'll literally start scouring the internet for like opposition research or dirt on like a specific person to destroy their reputation. I mean, think about it. If they're self-learning and they're supposed to be far more intelligent than, I don't know, sincere intelligence, real intelligence, as opposed to artificial intelligence, yeah, they're gonna cause harm aside from stealing people's jobs. And those numbers are almost identical across white and blue collar workers, by the way, because I think white collar workers woke up to the fact that companies be looking to replace your asses too. It's just the truth. Those coders, they were the first to go. And they're not blue collar workers. In fact, coders are the ones who probably listen to the advice of Democratic politicians like Hillary Clinton about, certain industries no longer being in vogue. Just go learn to code. These kids go to learn to code and graduate into an economy where there's no more jobs because of the very industry they work in developing artificial intelligence. It's great, isn't it? So that's what we're dealing with when it comes to AI. Trump has totally minimized the impact it's gonna have on the American people in the workforce, which you shouldn't be surprised about, because when he was asked if he thinks about the financial situations of Americans when he's making decisions about the war against Iran, he says, no, not at all. I never think about it. And it shows. Anyway, bonus episode for our members is next. tyt.com/join to become a member. I've got some more news to share with you. I'm gonna read your comments. We're gonna have some fun. Don't miss it. I'll see you in a bit.